Hello, my name is Fraser Simons. This is my channel Springboard Thought. Today I'm doing the short and sweet tag, which was created by Steve Donahue after watching a video from Britta Bowler. I'll put those below. Sean the Book Maniac tagged me to do this. It's very simple. You take short books, I think it's 4 to 10, speak on them very briefly, recommending them for whatever reason, and that's it. So it should be fairly simple. I think you're supposed to be fairly concise about each of these, so hopefully I'll be able to do that. I actually strangely don't have that many short books completed that I quite liked, but I have a ton waiting in the wings. I seem to pick huge books, probably because the act of physically taking out of my bookshelf that TBR book feels really good, whereas taking out a slim volume feels like less of a chunk taken out, I guess, because it literally is. The first book that I would recommend to people is This Is Water by David Foster Wallace. This is his codified empathy speech, basically. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a commencement address for graduates, and he probably rightly assumes that they're thinking, what did I get out of this actual program to think good, correctly adjusted? To actively make the choice of viewing what you're doing, your surroundings, your life, in framing it as a positive way as you can. You can choose to exercise your mind to see what the daily sort of mind-crushingly numb trivialities that we live under with capitalism try to do to our mind, and actively try to combat that in your everyday. And I guess it's quite sad when we think about it in retrospect because of what happened to David Foster Wallace, but I think it's a moving speech. I think it's worth keeping in your mind. I also want to recommend Winter's Bone by Daniel Woodrell. If you have any interest whatsoever in Southern Gothic and where it has kind of evolved from Faulkner, and where I think even his poetics really, like his prose, what people have done with that specific genre, subgenre, and where it's at today, consume this book. There is obviously some other proponents working in that space, but for me personally, because I am very into, I suppose, more lyrical prose, I think the reaction of prose against Hemingway, his sort of short-clipped declarative sentences, are my preference, and so in this book, that's what you'll get. What do I mean by that? Maybe it's better just to read you a sentence or two of it. Ree Dolly stood at break of day on her cold front steps and smelled coming flurries and saw meat. Meat hung from trees across the creek. The carcasses hung pale of flesh, with a fatty gleam from low limbs of saplings in the side yards. 3 halt, haggard houses formed a kneeling rank on the far creekside, and each had 2 or more skinned torsos dangling by rope from sagged limbs. Venison left to the weather for 2 nights and 3 days, so the early blossoms of decay might round the flavor, sweeten that meat to the bone. Next, I've mentioned this book a few times. It's one of my favorites, For Love of the Game by Michael Shaara. This was published posthumously by his son, and it's a book for his son. To my mind, it's very much about toxic masculinity that's been internalized by older generations, trying to raise younger generations, the interplay between that with a growing son and father, a reckoning that you have to deal with in old age. It's about a pitcher who, in this, essentially flashbacks to previous events in his life as he tries to make 2 decisions in his life that will forever alter the trajectory from here. He has to decide if he's going to quit baseball as a semi-famous pitcher, and if he's going to go after the love of his life. Next, if you're not sure if you've read any plays and you just want to get into a classic, Streetcar Named Desire, I think is a pretty solid recommendation. Tennessee Williams, it's very clear in what the play is doing. It's got some heavy themes. It is a product of its time, so you'll be able to judge if you sort of like that mentality of approaching a classic for relevance or not. And it has exceptional writing, characters, and I think it is a great play. If you're not sure about Jeff VanderMeer, why not try his small little strange book, The Strange Bird? It is situated in the same universe as the Borne books, and so you'll definitely be able to tell if VanderMeer is a palette that applies to you, because he is quite strange. He's very concerned with ecofascism and mega corporations that are intruding on that space. He writes climate fiction, to my mind, that is very intersectional with science fiction. He's very concerned with the cultural consciousness and literalizing or surrealism being applied to those aspects in our culture, and sort of the unknowability of the natural Mother Earth, its products, and what it sort of says about mankind and its almost ineptitude to perceive nature as it actually is, or at least adapt lessons from nature into our own culture. Next, Effect by Charlene Elsby. This is not that long, 140 pages. The pages are thick and nice though, high GSM. This is a strange book that I really, really like. It's about a philosophy student who meets a boy, they hook up, and she starts perceiving her world differently when they're coupled. But her lens is really, really heavily influenced by philosophy. So the voice and the perspective is all done through a philosophical lens. It's very poetic. I thought that it was just, I hadn't read anything like it. I thought it was more or less conventional, except for the voice in particular. There is some surrealism being blended in here where, because she is so interested in the philosophical aspects, her imagination definitely bleed into what may or may not be happening. So you have an unreliable narrator. It's very active at engaging the reader, which I really enjoy. It's Canadian. She's fantastic. I liked her other book, Psychros, a lot too. But this one feels more out of the box. And so even if it fails ostensibly at really encapsulating an ending, it was still more than enough to give it a 5-star review for me. Next, if you're not sure about flash fiction, like I was, you should try 28 Far Cries by Marc Nash. He's on BookTube as well. Fantastic channel. He's very good at speaking about books, finding books that you probably haven't heard of, and evaluating them in very interesting ways. And this is 28 stories of flash fiction that vary very widely. They're very thought-provocative, very interesting. He's exceptional at prose work. He's an exceptional all-around writer, in my opinion. And this completely changed my mind about flash fiction, so I recommend it. Next, I think you don't really have an excuse to not try Beowulf in its contemporary form by Maria Headley. This book is just so damn good. I don't think it will have the staying power of other translations, but the beauty of it is that it might stay in relevance simply because it chose to do a different kind of translation. It's very contemporary. It uses slang. It uses a lot of different verbiage that you wouldn't see. It's also feminist in its translation. It changes aspects of the story in very interesting ways. It is still meant to be read aloud. It is exceptional. The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran. This is, I don't even know what to say about this book. It's perfect. It's a perfect book. He only gets away with it because I think he has a very exceptional mind. The prose are perfect. The advice, the life advice, I guess, is exceptionally insightful and used so that you can, it's not very prescriptive in, as far as I recall anyway. There's enough subjectivity to the advice that it doesn't feel like he is telling you what you should do. He is giving you notions to unpack yourself in order to get you there. It is what self-help should be, and not the trite that is just like bloviated and regurgitated onto the masses ad nauseum, like, say, I don't know, Jordan Peterson. And that's it. That's the short and sweet tag. Hopefully it was actually short and sweet. I'll see you next tag, next Tuesday. There's another one coming as usual. See you later.